The day Buddy left this world was one of the hardest days of my life. It was an early autumn morning, and the air outside was crisp, carrying a faint scent of fallen leaves. Inside, the house was unusually quiet, as if it, too, understood the gravity of the moment. Buddy lay on his favorite spot by the window, his breathing shallow but steady. His once bright brown eyes, which had always been full of mischief and life, were now clouded and heavy with exhaustion. I had been watching him closely over the past few weeks, knowing this day was inevitable. The vet had gently told me that Buddy's heart was failing and that his time was near. Still, knowing didn't make it any easier. Every moment felt precious, fleeting, and unbearably heavy. That morning, as the first rays of sunlight spilled into the room, I sat beside him, gently stroking his fur. His once glossy coat was now patchy and rough, but to me, it was still beautiful. He turned his head slightly, his eyes meeting mine with a look of such deep understanding that it brought tears to my eyes. It was as if he was trying to comfort me, even in his final moments. "Hey, Buddy," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You've been such a good boy. The best boy. You've made my life so much better just by being in it." His tail wagged weakly at the sound of my voice, a faint echo of the exuberant wag that used to greet me every time I walked through the door. That small gesture broke me. I leaned down and pressed my forehead to his, feeling the warmth of his presence one last time. Buddy had always been my shadow, following me from room to room, never wanting to be apart. Now, as I sat there, I realized this was the one journey he would take without me. The thought was unbearable, and I felt a lump rise in my throat. As the morning wore on, Buddy's breathing grew slower and more labored. I called the vet, who came to our home to help Buddy pass peacefully. It felt important for him to be in his own space, surrounded by the familiar sights and smells of the life we had shared. The vet arrived with a quiet, respectful demeanor. She knelt beside Buddy, gently examining him, and then looked at me with soft, understanding eyes. "He's ready," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, though my heart screamed in protest. I wasn't ready. How could anyone ever be ready to say goodbye to a soul that had brought so much love and joy into their life? I cradled Buddy's head in my hands, my tears falling onto his fur. "I love you, Buddy," I said, my voice breaking. "You've been my everything." The vet administered the injection, and I felt Buddy's body relax in my arms. His breathing slowed, then stopped altogether. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. I sat there for what felt like hours, holding him, unable to let go. The weight of his stillness was crushing, a stark contrast to the lively, spirited dog he had always been. The house felt unbearably empty, even though he had only just left. As I finally laid him down gently on his blanket, I noticed the way the sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow over him. It felt like a quiet goodbye, a final gift from the universe. That day, I buried Buddy in the backyard under the oak tree where he had loved to sit and watch the world go by. I placed his favorite toy, a worn-out tennis ball, beside him, along with a small note that simply read, "Thank you." The grief was overwhelming, a deep ache that settled in my chest and refused to leave. But amidst the sorrow, there was also a profound sense of gratitude. Buddy had given me so much. His unconditional love, his boundless joy, his steadfast companionship. Even in his final moments, he taught me the meaning of letting go with grace and love. As I sat by his resting place that evening, the sky painted in hues of gold and orange, I whispered one last goodbye. Rest easy, Buddy. You'll always be my best boy. Buddy's life was a tapestry of love, loyalty, and endless joy. A life that touched not just mine, but everyone who had the privilege of knowing him. He wasn't just a dog. He was family. Thinking back on his 14 years with us, I realize how deeply he enriched our lives with his unwavering presence and simple, yet profound, acts of love. Buddy came into our home as a young pup, full of energy and mischief. I can still picture the first time he clumsily slid across the kitchen floor, his oversized paws struggling to find traction on the tiles. It was impossible not to laugh as he sprawled out, his ears flopping over his eyes in pure puppy confusion. From that moment on, he became the center of our world. He was a curious soul, always eager to explore the world around him. Every walk was an adventure, every new scent a discovery. The park was his kingdom, and he ruled it with boundless enthusiasm. I'll never forget the time he leapt into a muddy pond without hesitation, emerging covered from head to tail in muck, but with the biggest grin on his face. His joy was infectious, and even though I had spent an hour cleaning him up afterward, I couldn't stop laughing. Buddy had a way of finding happiness in the smallest things, a game of fetch, a belly rub, or even just lying in a patch of sunlight. He reminded me daily that life didn't have to be complicated to be meaningful. His favorite pastime was sitting by the window, his nose pressed against the glass, watching the world go by. He'd wag his tail furiously at the sight of the mailman, bark excitedly at passing squirrels, and perk up at the sound of children playing. But Buddy wasn't just about fun and games. He had an extraordinary ability to sense emotions. On days when I felt weighed down by the world, he would quietly sit beside me, resting his head on my lap, his eyes filled with understanding. It was as if he knew exactly what I needed. His presence, his warmth, his silent assurance that everything would be okay. There were countless moments when Buddy showed his remarkable loyalty. I remember one stormy night when the power went out, and I was alone in the dark. Thunder rumbled outside, and I felt a pang of fear. Buddy, who was usually terrified of storms, climbed onto the couch beside me, pressing his body against mine. His trembling slowly stopped, as if he had decided his need to comfort me outweighed his own fear. He had a special bond with every member of the family. My niece, a shy little girl, found her best friend in Buddy. He patiently let her dress him in silly hats and scarves, never once complaining. With my elderly father, he was a gentle companion, walking slowly by his side during his evening strolls. It was as though Buddy instinctively adapted to each person's needs, offering exactly what they required without being asked. Buddy's intelligence never ceased to amaze me. He quickly learned the names of his toys, distinguishing between ball, rope, and duck with surprising accuracy. But his true genius lay in his ability to communicate. A subtle nudge of his nose, a tilt of his head, or a soft whine was enough to let me know exactly what he wanted. One of my favorite memories is of our road trips. Buddy loved the open road, his head sticking out of the car window, ears flapping in the wind, and a look of pure bliss on his face. He was my co-pilot, my confidant during those long drives, and his excitement made every journey unforgettable. As he grew older, Buddy slowed down, but his spirit remained unshaken. He could no longer chase after squirrels or leap into ponds, but he found joy in quieter moments. He would lie beside me as I read, his soft snores providing a comforting background noise. He cherished our slow, meandering walks, sniffing every blade of grass as if savoring the world a little more deeply. Even in his final years, Buddy's capacity for love never wavered. He greeted me every morning with a wagging tail, his eyes lighting up at the sight of me. He continued to offer his companionship, his presence a constant source of comfort and joy. Buddy's life was not extraordinary by any grand measure. He never performed in a show, never won an award, never achieved fame. But in his quiet, unassuming way, he taught me some of life's most important lessons. He showed me how to live in the moment, how to find joy in simplicity, and how to love unconditionally. As I reflect on his life, I am overwhelmed by a sense of gratitude. Buddy gave me so much more than I ever gave him. He made me laugh on my hardest days, comforted me in my darkest moments, and filled my life with a love so pure that it changed me forever. Buddy's journey began on a cold, rainy evening, one that seemed destined for sadness, but became the start of something truly beautiful. I remember the day vividly. I had been searching for a dog to adopt for months, waiting for the right one to find me. I didn't know it at the time, but Buddy wasn't just a dog in need of a home. He was the missing piece I didn't realize my life lacked. It was at the local animal shelter, a modest and slightly overcrowded facility, that I first laid eyes on him. He was a tiny, shivering puppy, barely a few weeks old, huddled at the back of a crate. The shelter worker told me he had been abandoned, left in a soggy cardboard box on the side of the road during a storm. When they found him, his fur was soaked through, and he was so cold that they weren't sure he would survive the night. The moment our eyes met, everything else seemed to blur. While the other puppies barked and clamored for attention, Buddy just stared at me with those wide, frightened eyes. His little body trembled, and his floppy ears drooped as though the weight of the world already rested on his tiny shoulders. He was the underdog, the forgotten one, and I knew in that instant that he was meant to be mine. As I approached the crate, I crouched down and extended my hand. He didn't rush toward me like the others. Instead, he hesitated, inching forward cautiously. We finally reached my hand. He sniffed it tentatively before giving it the faintest lick. That small gesture, so timid yet so trusting, melted my heart completely. "This one," I told the shelter worker, my voice firm despite the lump in my throat. "I want this one." Bringing Buddy home was an adventure from the very beginning. He was so tiny, I could hold him in one arm, and his fur, still patchy from his ordeal, smelled faintly of rain and shelter shampoo. I wrapped him in a warm blanket and whispered promises to him on the drive home. "You're safe now, little guy. I'll take care of you. You'll never be alone again." The first few days were a mix of challenges and heartwarming moments. Buddy was understandably nervous, hesitant to explore his new surroundings. He would dart behind furniture at sudden noises, his tail tucked between his legs. At night, he would whimper softly, a heartbreaking sound that spoke of loneliness and fear. I moved his bed beside mine, and each time he whimpered, I reached down to stroke his tiny head until he drifted off to sleep. But Buddy's resilience was remarkable. Slowly, day by day, he began to trust me and the world around him. His first tail wag was a monumental moment, a timid little swish that grew more confident with each passing day. Watching him discover joy for the first time was like seeing a flower bloom. He started chasing after toys, stumbling over his oversized paws in an endearing clumsiness. His favorite was a stuffed duck, nearly as big as he was, which he would drag around proudly. I'll never forget the first time Buddy experienced the outdoors. I carried him out to the yard, setting him gently on the grass. For a moment, he froze, unsure of what to do. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, he began to bounce around, sniffing everything with boundless curiosity. The sunlight caught the golden hues of his fur, and his ears flopped with each playful leap. It was as if he had found a piece of himself that had been missing. Buddy's personality blossomed in those early months. He was equal parts mischievous and sweet, a bundle of energy and affection. He had a habit of chewing on shoes, his sharp little teeth leaving tiny punctures as evidence of his escapades. Yet, the moment he looked up at me with those innocent eyes, all frustration melted away. He was impossible to stay mad at. As he grew, so did our bond. Buddy was my shadow, following me from room to room, always eager to be near. He had a way of making even the simplest moments special. Whether it was curling up beside me on the couch, his head resting on my leg, or the way he'd greet me at the door with uncontainable excitement, Buddy filled my days with joy. I hadn't known I was missing. His loyalty was unwavering from the start. I remember one evening when a loud crash of thunder startled both of us. Buddy, still so small and nervous, darted under the table. But the moment he saw that I was scared too, he cautiously came out, sitting beside me and leaning his little body against mine. Even as a puppy, his instinct to comfort and protect was evident. Buddy's early days were not without struggles. His rough start in life had left him with a few health issues, and there were sleepless nights spent at the vet, worrying over his fragile little body. But he was a fighter, and each time he bounced back stronger, his resilience inspiring me in ways I never expected. As he grew from a timid puppy into a confident, loving dog, I often marveled at how far he had come. The scared, shivering pup I had brought home that rainy night was now a vibrant soul who brought warmth and light into every corner of my life. Buddy's journey was a testament to the power of love, trust, and second chances. Buddy may no longer be by my side, but he will forever remain in my heart. His absence is a void I feel deeply, a silence where there was once joyful barking, a stillness where there was once boundless energy. Yet, even in his absence, Buddy's presence lingers in the most unexpected ways, bringing both solace and a bittersweet ache. Every corner of the house holds a memory of him. The spot by the window where he used to nap still seems to glow with a warmth that only he could bring. His favorite blanket, though neatly folded now, feels heavier in my hands, as if it still carries the weight of his little body. I sometimes catch myself looking down, expecting to see him trotting beside me, his tail wagging in contentment. These moments remind me that grief is not a linear path, is a journey of love that refuses to let go. The nights are the hardest. Buddy had a way of curling up beside me, his rhythmic breathing a steady comfort in the quiet hours. Now, the silence feels deafening. I often find myself lying awake, my hand instinctively reaching for the spot where he used to lie. But instead of despair, I choose to fill that emptiness with gratitude. How lucky I was to have had those moments, to have known such pure and unwavering love. Buddy's legacy lives on in the lessons he taught me. He showed me the value of living in the moment, of finding joy in the simplest things. He reminded me to greet each day with enthusiasm, to savor the warmth of the sun, the sound of the wind, and the companionship of those we hold dear. But he didn't just live, he thrived, and in doing so, he taught me how to do the same. I see Buddy in the world around me, in the wag of a stranger's dog's tail, in the way the sunlight filters through the trees, in the laughter of children playing in the park. He is in the wind that brushes my face, in the rustle of leaves, in the quiet moments when my heart feels both heavy and full. His spirit, once so alive and vibrant, has woven itself into the fabric of my life, an enduring reminder of all that he was and all that he gave. One of the most profound things about loving an animal is the way they transform us. Buddy's love softened my edges, made me more patient, more compassionate, and more present. He reminded me that love is not just about the big moments, but about the countless small acts of kindness and care that build a lifetime of memories. In the weeks after Buddy's passing, I found myself drawn to the oak tree in the backyard where he now rests. Sitting beneath its branches, I feel a sense of peace, as if Buddy is still watching over me, his loyal heart still beating in some unseen way. I talk to him sometimes, my words carried away by the wind, hoping they reach wherever he may be. Thank you, Buddy, I say, my voice soft but steady. Thank you for every wag, every bark, every moment you spent by my side. Thank you for your loyalty, your joy, your love. You were the best boy, and you always will be. Grief has a way of changing us, of reshaping the way we see the world. Losing Buddy has been a painful reminder of the fleeting nature of life, but it has also deepened my appreciation for the beauty of the time we had together. His life was a gift, and though it ended too soon, it was full of meaning and love. As I move forward, I carry Buddy with me, not just in memories, but in the way I live. I try to approach each day with the same enthusiasm he showed, to love as openly and completely as he did. I find myself smiling more at strangers, being more forgiving, and cherishing the little things. These are the gifts Buddy left behind, and I honor him by embracing them. The world feels a little dimmer without Buddy, but it is also brighter because of him. His life was a light that touched everyone who knew him, and that light continues to shine, even in his absence. He may no longer be here in body, but he will forever be with me, in my heart, in my soul, In every moment I remember to live with love. Buddy was my best friend, my confidant, my family. And though his journey in this world has ended, his story will never truly be over. It lives on in the stories I tell, in the love I carry, and in the quiet moments when I feel him near. He is and always will be forever in my heart.